another podcast session. My name is Brooke and Daniel is here as well. Today we're going to talk about the full moon. Ow! We had one just the other day and it is called the Beaver full moon. Daniel is going to fill us in on a little bit more about beavers.
Hey there, guys. So as Brooke said, Monday was the Beaver Moon. It's believed that they called it the Beaver Moon because of that's when beavers start building their dams. So we thought today we'd tell you guys a little bit about why beavers were so important to this area, why beavers were so important historically, as well as a little bit about the fur trading business that we all know our man Joe was involved with, and want to talk a little bit about that.
So when beavers were making their dams, why did they do it during a full moon?
It's not that they did it during the full moon, Brooke. What it was is November was the time frame that they would start their dams, so they could prepare for winter, for hibernation. So it had nothing to do with the full moon. It just happened that the full moon this year, or this time of year, is called the wolf moon, or the beaver moon. Actually, all over the year, every full moon is actually known as a different item. I think it's January is the wolf moon. March is actually the worm moon. Don't know why it's called the worm moon, but March is the worm moon. And then I think it's September or October was known as the harvest moon. So they're all kind of based on when you saw that full moon, you knew it's time to harvest, or you knew it was time to, I guess, maybe gather worms, something along those lines.
So let's talk about beavers. Their skin in particular, they like to hang out in water. Why is their skin something that's so sought after?
Well, so we first got to take a step back and kind of talk about fur pelts as a whole. So with fur pelts, basically there's three types of fur pelts you try and go for. There's what's called a full pelt, which is the fur and the skin. The leather, which is more of just like the skin without the fur there, or felts, which is the fur without the skin. So kind of the three different levels of it. Of course, they had to process the actual fur, the felt part of it, to make it usable.
Okay, so let's say felt, for example, is the fur of a sheep, right? So we just use the fur. And now we're talking about pelt from a beaver. So how was a beaver processed?
So it kind of depends on what they were trying to process it for. So like as an example, all the way back to the era of Homer, Caesar, Constantinople, the Russian Tartars, or the people of Russia, were using the felt of beavers under their armor. So they were processing it to make that soft kind of, covering so that the armor wasn't just sitting straight on your shoulder blades.
So a little bit of a rain-resistant, flexible feel to your skin, keep you warm. So Homer was actually a huge fan of beaver pelt. Is that correct?
Well, we don't know who Homer was, but the era of Homer is, we know that there's a thing called wool felting, which is basically using, like you talked about, sheep wool to do that felting process of processing it down and putting in stuff. Like I said, when you talk beavers, it really wasn't until your 1200s with the Tartars in Kiev that really you started seeing beaver fur being used for, like you talk about, that waterproofing, but also just to have, kind of a softer thing against your body when you're dealing with heavy metal armor. You don't really want that against your skin at all.
So Europe, they actually had a big history in fur trading using beaver pelt. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so basically the most popular item using beaver felt or fur or all the different process, because there was even a full felt or full fur version of this, was the hat. That was kind of the big thing with beaver. Skin, fur, all that kind of stuff. It started off apparently as a Russian thing. They made Russian hats. But they were so popular that even back in the Canterbury Tales, there's a story that talks about that there was a man who had a Flanderish beaver hat. So even in the 14th century, people were talking about beaver skin hats. So basically, Russia would import them out using European beaver pelts and made these different types of hats, which I'll put up a picture because there was a bunch of different styles, military hats. Basically, everyone wanted a beaver skin hat. I would assume it probably had to do with the fact that because their skin is waterproof, it probably was a waterproofing aspect where you could wear your hat and not have to worry about water getting through your hat and destroying it.
Oh, wow. Okay. So at this point, we have different types of hats that are available. Almost, you could say that there were designers of beaver.
Yeah, basically, there was different designs. Each, like the picture I showed up here, and I'll put it up again, shows there was basically, you would find different eras, but you had clerical hats that were specifically designed in one way, or you had what's called the Wellington, which came out in the 1800s that looked very specific, or they had the Continental, what was known as the cocked hat, which was a specific design. And so there were hundreds of different designs that they did. But unfortunately, because they were so popular, by about 1600, almost all furs in all beavers in Europe were extinct. That they actually
Oh,
almost killed them all off.
oh, wow. So, of course, we're talking about Europe, and at this point in time, America starts to become a thing, and then there's fur trapping, fur trading that happens from Europe, comes to America, and then back to Europe, back to America. How does that work?
Yeah, so basically what happened is, and one of my favorite lines from some of the research I was doing is saying, fortunately, although perhaps not for the American beaver, right as the time that the European beavers were depleted, people arrived in the Northern American colonies and found beavers. And so immediately they started gathering up as many beavers as possible. One of the biggest things is that their differences between a European beaver and an American beaver are almost zero. They're almost identical to each other in every way. There's a few small differences, but when it comes to their furs and their pelts, they were all the same.
So, let's say I want a beaver hat. How many beavers is that? How much does it cost me?
So basically, we'd have to go back to the beginning. So basically, what would happen is the fur trading companies, like the American Fur Trade Companies, which Joseph worked for, or the Hudson Bay Company, would gather furs from natives, from fur traders like Joseph. And what they would do is they would basically pay them for those furs. Um, the Hudson Bay Company actually was known for marking up their products. So what they would do is they'd actually pay a person in product. So a blanket, a good example is really a blanket for it, but something else like that. And let's say that you wanted to buy a blanket, Brooke, and I would charge you, let's say it would cost me 8 shillings or 6 shillings. I would charge you 10 shillings, is what I valued the what's called a made beaver pelt at. So I'm making money off that by selling you a lower quality product, but you get a blanket that you want.
Okay, so kind of similar to today, where you sell a candle, you mark it up twice the value of what you bought it for.
Exactly. And so then what these companies would do is then they would take those and they would take them to what were known as basically wholesalers. And but they would sell them to them in that wholesale variety. They'd sell them in a giant pack of furs at about 4 times the regular value it was before, basically increasing the cost on them.
The love of beaver pelts became so widespread that it was actually used as currency. Isn't that correct?
That is 100% correct. So the Hudson Bay Company, which is really the biggest, I don't want to say fish in the ocean in this situation, around Hudson Bay area in Canada, used what's called made beaver, which was a perfect pelt, as their currency. So as an example, like I said, if you want to buy a blanket, it would cost you 7 made pelts. Or let's say you want to have a pair of shoes. They would actually end up charging you for that pair of shoes about 3 pelts. So, we'll put a picture up here. Massive beaver pelts worth 3 of those will get you 1 pair of shoes.
So let's say that I want to buy a comb, as an example. A comb would cost 2 beaver pelts, 2 beaver skins. So the process of me using beaver as currency, I would have to plan ahead. It's not like the day before saying, oh, I really should get a comb tomorrow.
Exactly. So with beaver felts, you actually have to have them dry for almost 2 years, mostly because they're water resistant, so you can't just wash them off, if that makes sense. So basically, you'd have to be preparing a couple years ahead of, okay, like we're looking today. In 2022, I want to buy a comb, I want to buy a hat, and I want to buy a t-shirt. I need to put together 10 beaver pelts to be able to do that. So you'd have to plan ahead that far just to be able to purchase those products.
Wow. That is such an interesting perspective. You know, you want anything, you really have to plan 2 years ahead of time. You have to come up with the product. You have to create literally your own currency.
Exactly. And so, like we said, once they sold those off, which at the peak in 1837, so we're talking Joseph Rebidoux time, the original price would be $2. You would pay $2 per felt, is what the companies were paying. They would sell them off at 750. So if we're talking modern day money, and this is 2012 money, I didn't get a chance to convert it to the modern day money, but we're looking at $48 to buy the pelt, and they would sell it at $176.
Now that is a pretty penny right there. We have some other photographs that we're going to put on the screen for you. I know that we have a beaver pelt hat that we'll show a picture of. I do want to talk a little bit about the chemical processes that were developed here in America with the hats. I know that there's a phrase called Mad Hatter out there.
Yeah, so the Mad Hatter concept comes from the second part of the process, which was processing the furs to make hats, coats, basically anything you could think of. And so what would happen is they'd have to use mercury to do that. And if, as we know now, mercury does what to people, Brooke?
It makes you feel good, vitality, long-lasting life.
Yes, completely, except for the exact opposite. So it would drive men crazy.
It really was the term Mad Hatter. Mercury is not a good thing to absorb into your skin. You would slowly go crazy. So, you know, that's how that went.
Exactly. So the phrase we hear Mad Hatters, like you said, came from men who were literally were hatters being driven mad. So it kind of changes your perspective on the whole Alice in Wonderland concept. The Mad Hatter in there wasn't necessarily what we all thought he was. And so, of course, like we said, the reason we want to talk about this today is because our own founder of our town, Joseph, was a fur trader. So we talk about, well, how did he make his money? Well, there's your answer. It's like I said, in 1837, a fur was worth $2 a pelt. So we have read stories that people have written about him that he would bring in thousands of pelts a year that were all beaver pelts, and he'd dry them in his facilities and all that kind of stuff. So when he was selling those off to the middlemen, he would pay pennies on a dollar for them and then sell them off to John Astor, one of these men, for $2 a pelt. If he sold 1,000, that's $2,000 at that time. You know, if that's $48 a piece, you're talking about in a year, he's making $48,000 a year, just like we make modern day levels of money.
What a wise businessman. You know, during that time, as far as what type of professions to go into. That sounds very lucrative.
I agree completely. And so, like I said, he worked in the fur trade for many, many years. We do know some times when he didn't work in the fur trade because Astor literally paid him not to. And, when we read the stories about him, I know at one period for 2 years, John Astor and the American Fur Trade Company paid Joseph almost $2,000 a year not to fur trade. But when we think about the fact of how much he was making while fur trading, it makes total sense that Astor would then pay him that astronomical amount to not fur trade.
So back in the 1800s, there were people walking down the streets of St. Joe wearing beaver. Is that right?
For a while. Oddly enough, beaver fur actually stopped being popular in about 1850. And there is a point in history that you can actually look at that is viewed as the exact moment that beaver fur stopped being important.
Thank you so much for the history of the Beaver full moon, how Joe was involved in the fur trade. And I just wanted to say thank you to all those that donated on Giving Tuesday. It was a wonderful event and a big turnout. Thank you so much for supporting us here at the Ruby Doo Row.
Yeah, definitely. We did have a really good day that day. We do have some new donation things you can go on our website for. It's under special projects. We are currently trying to work on some projects around the building here. So if you're still in that giving mood, or, let's say you get a gift card from grandma you don't really want, we have it set up where you could actually donate that to us. And the company that we work with can actually convert that from a gift card into an actual physical dollar bill price. And so you can help us out. I know we're working a little bit about wanting to get some rain barrels around here to kind of preserve some of the water that we get around here.
I'm super excited about the Rain Barrel project. It's literally going to look like a barrel. So it's going to be a very um, non, it's going to blend in with the building really well. We're going to have flowers on top. We're going to use the water for the garden in the back. So it's just going to be a very organic process.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So along with that, obviously the museum is still open, and we did just get word that we're going to not be open for the last 2 days of December, the 30th and the 31st. We are going to be closed for those 2 days. So if you're wanting to come by, you have a lot less time than you think you do. You only have a couple weeks to come in. Obviously, Christmas week, we're going to have closed Christmas and the day after Christmas. So we're only looking at probably maybe 10 or so days of December of row being open. So if you want to come by, definitely hit us up now. As I said before, last week, we do have a special deal going on right now with not just Moonlight Leather. They always have great stuff here, but Cat Designs. Brooke, can you tell us a little bit about what they're doing this week, right now?
Yeah, so Cat Designs, we are going to have just a few weeks left. So come on down, get your Christmas presents, your stocking stuffers. I know Cat Designs has some amazing jewelry right now. I just love her earrings. And she's actually having a sale right now.
That's correct. Right now, everything that she has, every painting, jewelry piece, turtle, everything is 50% off.
That is an awesome deal. I know Moonlight Leather, she's still taking custom orders. So if you got a little baby at home, you want a little teeny tiny shoes, little booties, get those in. So we have some great coloring books, some cookbooks. We have just a wealth in our gift shop.
Yeah, 100%. And if you guys, along with that, if you guys have missed a few of these live streams, you can definitely go back on Facebook and find them. But on top of that, we actually are proud to announce that effective this week, the Ruby Doo Row now has a YouTube channel. We're going to be doing some exclusive videos over there down the line. Not right now. We're still working on fixing the camera. But down the line, we're going to be looking to do some special YouTube-only videos. Of course, we do have the Instagram. You can tell us a little bit about that, Brooke.
I'm really excited about the Instagram. Please stay updated on that. We will be posting events, ongoings, what's happening with exhibits, a little piece of history here and there. So that is a great place to stay on top of what we're doing.
And of course, always check out the rest of what we have on Facebook. We try and post here every couple days. We'll post up little things on here. And I think we have some other stuff coming down the pipeline. But definitely you guys have a Merry Christmas. Like we said, a few more weeks and we'll be closing up for the season. So definitely do swing by and see us, or come by and get some stuff out of that gift shop and get your significant other or your brother or someone something special.
One last question. Do beavers howl at the moon?
Not that I know of. Wolves do. I don't think beavers do too much.
Okay, maybe I can find a recording for you all. Maybe we'll get that in there.
Sounds great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do look forward to seeing you guys next week when we do another one of these great live streams slash podcasts. Do check out all of our different social medias. And we want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. See you next time.